and sit down.
Very well.
Good.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you. So what's happening is one of my plans for 2024 is to interview members. So you're my guinea pig because I've never done this before.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So we'll see how it goes.
Yes.
So where are you living then at the moment, Sharon?
I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, which is my primary residence. And as you've probably seen, I spend time with my mother, who's 93, in Michigan. And I also spend as much time as I can in Mexico.
All
So I'm
right.
kind of between the three places.
So you're getting about a bit then.
Yes, very much.
Okay. Okay. So when you go to all these places, do you go for a holiday or do you go to do street photography or
I
a
go
bit of both?
a bit of both. A bit
Okay.
of both. Of course, I spend time with my mother to be with her at this time in her life. But I love my life in DC. I've got a very rich community of friends and activities here. But I have, since I retired a few years ago, I fell in love with Mexico. And so I
Okay.
now have residency there and an apartment. And so I'm spending as much time as I can there as well. And, it's very different than DC and very different from Michigan. It's very visual. It's just great for photography.
So what's the difference in street photography there then? Are there any difference in restrictions or are you free to go out and take pictures as you like or what?
Well, as far as I know, I'm free to do anything as long as people don't object. I haven't hit any bumps in the road at all. I haven't actually researched it, which probably would be a good idea. Um, but it's just, as I mentioned, so visual, and life is lived because of the climate. For the most part, life is lived outside in a different way than it is in the US, especially in DC, and especially when it's colder weather here. So it's just lots of opportunities to see interesting things.
Okay, so you said that no one's actually objected. So what would happen if they did? What would your response be?
Oh, I would either, depending on my read of the situation, I would apologize, or I would back off, or I would show them what I had done or what I wanted to do. I rarely have that issue, that problem. And if I feel like somebody is going to notice, then I might approach them. And sometimes I do just shoot, kind of from the hip or whatever, and just keep going. But people I've found to be generous most of the time.
Okay, here in the UK, we are allowed to shoot anything or anyone that we see in from a public place. Um, However, if people do sort of object, then we could either turn around and say, well, you're in public, so it's tough. You don't have any right to expect privacy in public, or as you
Yeah.
say, we could sort of apologize and back down. So it depends sort of on the way that you deal with things, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, like you, I haven't had many rejections or objections. I've been doing it like 5 years, and I think probably if I say a dozen, that's probably too many people have objected. I
Yes.
think the secret is to try and do it so they don't actually see
Yeah,
that
that does make a difference too.
if you can do that, of course. So, how long have you been doing street then?
Just a few months since I joined this group. A friend of mine was a part of the group, and I started noticing his photos, which at that time the group was public. And so I joined, and that was, I think, a year ago, December of
Yeah.
2020. Yeah, and I immediately was invited into Streetwise for a reason. And I have to say that I feel like my photography has greatly improved with the tutelage of the admins and mentors and other participants in Streetwise. And I've always been a visual person, and I've always been the photographer among all my friends and family members. But I think shooting street was an adjustment for me. So understanding what that was about, that was my learning curve.
So what do you think it is about then?
Shooting street or street
Yeah,
photography
street, yeah.
is, well, I think the most important thing that's been helpful for me to understand that it's about storytelling, and it's about taking photographs that are not set up, they're not staged, they're not people you know, and they're in a public place. And I think that public space or place concept is what sometimes trip people up, because so it doesn't have to be on the literal street. It could be in a museum or in a church or even in a pub or a restaurant, as long as it's someplace where people can circulate freely.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because on IASPG, they actually think that because they're on a street, then it's street, and if it's not on a street, then it's not street. And I think that, as you say, trips a lot of people up, and there has to be more than just a photograph outside. There has to be something more to the picture, which I think a lot of people find difficulty in getting into their picture, I think.
Yeah. And I
So
think that's where the feedback from the group, if you ask for it, really comes in.
mm.
Uh, it's very useful, and that's where I can really say I've grown.
Yeah, I think I've noticed quite a big difference in your pictures, and the quality is a lot better, I think. And not that it was ever that bad, but I can see that quite a lot of quality in your pictures now. And you're getting a lot more in the picture. You're getting layers in as well. Your colors and your technicalities is coming over very well, I think.
No, thank you. I think one other thing that I realize I've grown in the sense that before I was trying to express an idea, but it might be an idea of words. And now I realize I need to express that idea visually, and that's
Yeah,
been a difference for me.
yeah. It is difficult, I think, to go out and do that. And I'm trying to learn a bit more about that myself, actually. So because I'm tending to get a bit stuck in my way, so I need to sort of try and widen my I don't know what shall I call it, interest more, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah, so I think we've all got a lot to learn.
yeah.
So no, slowly but surely, eh?
Exactly. Well, and I think that's where Streetwise has really come in, because it has helped me. I mean, I've always been attuned to things that are beautiful, or have noticed things differently that I think than other people in my life. But Streetwise has actually formalized that and given me concepts and given me, things to look at. So now I notice that when I'm out, I'm seeing things in a different way and seeing it as it might come out in a photograph, which is exciting to me, because that's part of my growth, I feel.
You're becoming more and more confident, I think, aren't you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's coming over in what you're actually telling people as well. I mean, I've noticed that a lot in the main group, is that you're more confident about saying this is street or that isn't street, and you're looking at that a lot deeper now. So yeah, I've seen quite a big difference in you,
Yeah,
which is
thank
which is which is good to see.
you. Yes, that's the point of the group.
Yeah,
And
exactly. So what do you think is the main thing that you've learned then?
oh,
If you could say one thing.
I think capturing whatever image it is that I'm seeing in a way that's technically good, that tells a story, and that has interest.
Mhm.
Uh, I think.
So
Uh,
trying to tell the story, maybe.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Tell,
yeah.
because that's a part of street photography.
It is. It's a big part of street photography. Is trying to tell a story, trying to evoke some sort of emotion, I think,
Yeah, yeah,
or question, getting
yeah,
getting the viewer to question what they're seeing, maybe.
yeah.
I
And
think
then
so. If you can capture that all in the picture, then you're doing very, very well. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I agree.
Artistically, artistically and visually,
Yeah,
and tell the story is very important.
yeah. So so who do you think are your main influences?
Oh, I've been exposed more to street photographers now that I'm in this group than I had been before because it was really a new genre to me.
Hmm.
So I admire the photographs of some of my fellow admins and members. Eric Bowens is a great photographer.
Yeah,
You're a great photographer. Stephen Hooker, Mike Tagg is a great photographer. Judayati Hussein from Malaysia is a
yeah,
fantastic photographer when it comes to especially street portraits. She's just incredible.
she
uh,
is.
and all. But I like Eric Kim. I like Vivian Meyer. I mean, obviously Henri Cartier-Bresson.
Yeah.
Some of the greats are also influences as well.
I think I started partly due to Eric Kim.
Okay.
That I watched a lot of his videos, and I just like the way, especially I don't know whether you've seen the ones where he's gone off and done pods with a group. He's taken a group out, and he's sort of encouraged them to take pictures and to get closer. And I just like the way that he deals with it, and
Yeah.
he encourages people, and that's what I liked about him. And also his pictures are very good as well, of course.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I've watched a lot of his videos. I've sort of read a lot of his articles, etc. And that's what impressed me really. Uh, Obviously some of the more obvious ones like HCP of course, and so I'm not quite there yet. With HCB, I can't sort of quite get the decisive moment that I want, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I think someone like what's his name now? Forgotten his name now. Bruce Gilden. I'm sort of really impressed with his type of work, but I haven't got the guts to actually get that close to people with the flash.
Yeah.
So so I wish I was that confident, but I'm not,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it takes a lot of confidence and a lot of balls, I think, to do that.
Yeah.
So, but that's that. So, what gear do you use then?
My primary camera is my Pixel 7 Pro, and Pixels are known for having a good camera. And I only upgraded to the 7 Pro because I got pickpocketed in last year and lost my 4.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd still be using it because I was very happy with it. And then this year, I also purchased a used Sony A6000. And that's been a bit of a learning curve for me. I'm just using the kit lens on it, which is a 16 to 50, but still struggling to figure out, how to really effectively use it. But I'm trying to push myself to do that. It's so easy with the cell phone camera, and I feel like I've really mastered. Actually, with the help of the assignments through Streetwise, I have really mastered a lot of the how to use it well.
Yeah, I think I mean, as you've already mentioned, Jude. I mean, she mainly uses a cell phone, and some of her pictures are excellent. I think 3, 4, 5 years ago, when people talked about cell cameras, they always put them down, I think, and said that they're never as good as real cameras. But I think I've seen some fantastic pictures on phones, and I'm quite some of them I'm thinking I'm not quite that good, but it's I think the thing is about getting to know the device that you choose to use.
Yeah.
And if you do that, doesn't matter whether it's a camera or a mobile phone or medium format, as long as you get to know it, then I think you're going to get great pictures. I myself I've gone to a Sony as well for street. I've got the A7 IV.
Oh,
I've been a Nikon user for the last 20 years, and I was getting a little bit disappointed with some of it, some of the pictures I was taking, and I thought I'd change the system. So I understand that going to a new system is very difficult, and Sony's is famous for all its complicated menus.
yeah.
But I'm finding that most of it you don't need anyway. So they're actually gimmicks, aren't they? Most of it, you don't need all those menus and things.
Yeah, yeah, that's helpful. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just. It took me a while to get used to the focusing system, I think, but now I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. I've only had it like about 6 weeks, I think, so I'm still getting used to it. So so what would you say is your style? Your style in street photography? Have you got one? Are you still working on it or?
Well, I'd say I'm still working on it. I love street portraits, and I've developed a lot of confidence in asking people, or also just shooting without permission.
Mhm.
Um, and so I feel really good about that. But I've also always been interested in people in the margins of society. And so
Yeah.
that's another big interest of mine when I'm out looking for things that, because this is a part of life.
Mm.
And I know sometimes for some folks it's controversial to shoot the homeless. I think it's absolutely important to be respectful of folks, but it is a part of life, especially in the United States, where it should not be. Um, and so those are two interests of mine content wise. But
Hmm.
I also like the intersection of people's lives in the urban environment. And I get that in Mexico a lot, just these beautiful buildings and streets and markets. And as I said, life lived outside in a way that you don't see here anymore. It makes me think of probably what life was like in cities when my grandmother grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and what life was like back in the early 1900s. That's what I feel like I'm seeing sometimes when I'm traveling in other countries.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, as you say that photographing homeless is, as you know, on the main group is certainly a thing that keeps coming up, and people will say that it's not right. It's you shouldn't be doing that. Blah blah blah. And it's certainly a discussion point that comes up every few weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Like you, I tend to see it as part of life, and I think that. I think photography is about photographing life, and that is part of it. Unfortunately, and as I say, like you, I think we have to be respectful. And I think a lot of the street photographers who do take the homeless will actually go up and talk to them, and maybe buy them a cup of coffee or something. And they have a story to be told as well. And why shouldn't we photograph them? But I
Right.
say not everyone agrees with that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just something I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think we're constantly going to be discussing that and arguing that as well. So yeah, so I mean you are a good traveler, I think, aren't you? You do like getting around, and so what sort of which country have you been to that you enjoy the most, or?
Well, when I was younger, I traveled around the world for 2 years, and I had lived a couple of times in Europe, and then I traveled overland as much as possible to India and through Asia, and
Mm,
then back down to the US. So India was probably the most incredible place I visited. This was back in the early 80s, so a long time ago. And I want to go back. I think it'd be a great place for street photography and just to enjoy the culture and the art and life there and all. But I'm also interested actually a lot closer to home in traveling more in Central and South America.
all right, okay, okay. I think I mean India's on my bucket list, I think, to go, and there is a possibility we might actually go this year. I love the colours and the faces that you see and the scenes, and I think again Jude has actually sort of put that as a highlight to me. All her pictures are fantastic, I think, and I've seen some absolutely fantastic pictures of India, and I think that's what sort of is drawing me
Yeah.
to do that, and I think I'd love to. So that is on the bucket list. I am aiming to go. I mean, Japan and China I've been to,
Yes.
and that's fantastic as well. I like going to places where there's different cultures, different
Yes.
from our own. So India definitely, I think. There's also plans for us to go to Australia as well.
Well, that's all.
At some stage. So probably next year, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that gets us, I think.
That's right.
So so now you've been into street photography for a year now. What's been the biggest changes, do you think?
Well, as I mentioned, definitely in the quality of what I'm capturing, and also I think in how I see things and what I even choose to photograph. Before I just had the concept, oh, it's on the street, I'm going to photograph it.
Mm,
And frankly, I think that's some of what we see in the main group because it is an amateur group, and there's
mm,
no problem with that. But the hope is that people would begin to upgrade their vision and what they're seeing. So I think that for me, I used to take pictures of anybody. Now I look for interesting people,
mm.
as you said, often people who are dressed stylishly or in an interesting way are receptive. And I have definitely found that to be the case. And they make fantastic subjects
Yeah.
of photos.
I think that's when I'm asked about photographing people, that's why I always say look for people who are interesting
Yeah.
because they're if they're really smartly dressed, they want to be noticed. And I think I get more hits with those sorts of people than people who are like dressed in t-shirts and in jeans.
Yes.
Because they're saying, well, why do you want to photograph me? I'm not interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas people who are smartly dressed or got their own sense of style, I think they want to be noticed, which is
Yeah.
why that's what I go for. Hats. I've got a thing about hats at the moment, and that sort of thing, colored hair, and I'm doing all those sorts of things at the moment. So yeah, it is, and I think if you can go up and ask permission to a stranger to take their picture, I think that shows your confidence, I think, and your confidence will build and your street photography will get better because your confidence is getting better. And I think that's what I'm trying to put over when I talk to people on Streetwise. Get that right. And I think everything else will actually grow then. That's the idea anyway.
Yeah. I
So
agree.
yeah, okay. So I'm just looking at my list of questions. So when you go out to Sharon, what's your process? Do you go out with a plan of what you're going to photograph and a process, or do you just go out there and see what hits you?
A little of both. I walk a lot, especially in DC and Mexico, and so I think about where I want to walk, and I usually will walk. I'll walk out of my way so I can go
Mm,
areas that I know I will find people of interest or lighting of interest or buildings of interest. And so that's generally, and then I'm just look and am open to what I see because I'm not trying to copy anybody's style.
mm.
Although seeing people's style is helpful and influential, but I like to just get out there and let things unfold as I'm walking.
Okay, so you don't actually have a plan to think I'm going out to photograph a building or something, but you just go out and so
Yeah.
you're a hunter rather than the fisher, are you?
Yeah, I think that is right. I am more in the hunting mode, and
Yeah.
and I, in Streetwise, that's our latest assignment. So I'm also thinking about if fishing will be coming up, and the other thing that I enjoy is living in Washington, D.C. There are a lot of monumental buildings, and on
Right.
the they attract a lot of people, a lot of tourists or local people, museums, for example, but they're incredibly visual for
Mm.
photographing. And so I have had fun also going lately to museums during the holiday season because people are dressed to the nines and they're in there, really involved in the art, and it's makes for some really fun photography as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Okay. Okay. So we've probably touched on this a bit anyway. So you're an admin of both the main group and also Streetwise. So what's the difference?
Well, Streetwise is the learning group. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, I think I've learned so much from that. And it's just been a fantastic place to get exposed to different ways of thinking and seeing and getting the feedback that I have needed. So I enjoy that. I've learned so much. But I also really enjoy my work as a volunteer as an admin for the main group, because it exposes me to so many photographs. And because I'm an admin and there's an expectation that I get on as often as I can, I'm more disciplined. And so I'm looking at a lot more. And I frankly think that has also contributed to my improvement in photography this year.
Do you think you're more able to actually see a good picture now?
Oh, yes.
And a bad picture as
Oh,
well?
yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I have a sensitivity to that because I know that nobody knowingly posts a figure, a photo that is going to be considered, poor. That's just part of the learning curve.
Yeah.
And also sometimes I've seen comments that people will say, well, why would you even post that? And I think that's an unfair comment because for that person, that's what they saw and thought was good.
Yeah.
But the hope is that by, if people peruse the images, they will begin to see, and learn.
Yeah.
And really, we have some incredible photographers as members on the IASPG group. Another one I want to mention that is been a recent influence of mine in terms of my black and white is Christoph Bach.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible. So I have really appreciated. So I encourage people to look at his photos, but they're, Miguel Mia, there are a bunch of folks on the group that are really excellent photographers.
Quite impressed that you can actually remember their names. So that shows that you're actually on the group a lot. So that's good. But yes, Christopher Bach, I think I've seen quite a few of his, and he actually did quite well in the last Masters competition as well. I think he was certainly up there. I think.
Yes.
So yeah, I've noticed, and I think he shoots phone as well, doesn't he? Phone camera.
I don't know. Actually.
Yeah, he does. So so that's another one that's quite impressive with the phone cameras. So and I say Jude enters as well. We seem to be mentioning her name a lot, don't we? Jude, when she mentions, she's always up there in the top 5 or 6 as well. So that's good for them. So okay, so if you've got 3 tips to tell people, what would they be?
First tip is just to get out there and shoot a lot, because that's how you learn and improve. I think asking for feedback is always a good idea. And expanding your knowledge by looking online on YouTube, looking at well-known photographers, or perusing the images on the main site is a great way to to get to learn, because you can tell sometimes there are comments that I have found helpful and learned, or it's brought my attention to. So I think that, and I think always keeping an open mind and just, getting out there is really important.
Okay. Is there anything that you've seen or you've heard in street photography that you don't like, or you think is wrong, or whatever, or
Well, it bothers me.
You don't like to see maybe?
It bothers me when people are judgmental. I don't like that. And I think we all have a right to post what we feel is important. I think we should do it in a way that is non-provocative. Like sometimes I think the image is good, but the caption was provocative. I would prefer that people not try to stir the pot. So that to me is really important. And then I think just being generous with others, knowing that very few people knowingly, post, as I mentioned, a substandard photo. And we're all there at once. I mean, I remember some of the photos I posted at the beginning, just they were substandard,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I mean, I've had this conversation quite a lot with ex-admins who feel that the standard should be a lot higher than what it is, and they don't seem to remember that it is an amateur group.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I think I have to keep reminding them of that, which I do frequently,
Yes.
as you will have noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that people, especially the admins, need to remember, that they were amateurs once. Well, they're sort of beginners once, and I think they have to learn, and I think they need to give that same respect to the members as well, and not to be quite so, what should we say, nasty.
Yeah, judgmental. That's
Yeah,
the whole purpose of Streetwise. Most groups don't have a learning,
yeah.
but we do. So there is the avenue there to.
I like to think that we are a leader rather than a follower. So I think Streetwise. So I mean, the main group, is the only group that I know of that is for amateurs.
Yeah.
If you search amateur street photography groups, there isn't one except us. So then, and now we've got this second level of beginners as well. For Streetwise. So I like to think that we are leading the way, and other people may actually follow. So we'll have to wait and see, I think. So, right, Sharon, I think our time is running out. I've just had I don't know whether you've just seen that, a message to say our time is running out. So, I think that I'd like to thank you very much for helping me out with this, and we'll see. I'll send you a copy of it.
Okay. All right.
Send you a copy of it so you can